Hello everyone, it's Jasmine, your brow expert. So today's model is going to have very uneven eyebrows. I think I probably show, I don't know, uneven eyebrows once or twice a month because it's very common. And so you're not the only one. This is just an extreme case of it, but I'm sure you can relate with it. I know you can send this to someone that can use this tip. So clearly I made my brows a little uneven. Because there's some tattoo underneath. I always put concealer on, so the color's gonna be really dark. I've chosen a dark color for myself so you can see what I'm doing, but also obviously you can hopefully relate with this client. But even if you don't, I promise you'll get some tips out of it. I've been shaping eyebrows for almost 25 years now and still do so at the Anastasia Beverly Hills Salon. So if you're ever in the neighborhood, please come by, get your brows done. And some of you have, and I thank you for trusting me with your eyebrows. It's been a lot of fun meeting some of you and giving you tips. So thank you for that. And yeah, so without further ado, let's get into this model. So as I've said, she's got very uneven eyebrows. There's a few reasons why they are uneven. One is that her brow bone is higher. That high peak side of her eyebrow is high because her bone structure goes up higher. The size of her eye actually is smaller. The other side, the brow that's a little lower, she doesn't have a lot of space on her eyelid as much as the other side. And it's just a smaller. Really. So I'm going to make an outline even to show you how much they are uneven. And, you know, it can be more uneven when you tweeze too much in the wrong area. So you're really highlighting the fact that they're very unrelated. So I'm going to show you how you can make them a little bit more even. And I say a little bit more. If you make it very even, or at least try to, then the face starts looking a little funny. And as you can see, I don't know if I'm not going to show you her whole face, but you can just even see the unevenness of her facial structure. So that's another reason why the brows are uneven. So that's why you want to just make them a little even, but you can't really make it too much. Okay, so that is how uneven they are. The one on the side where it's a little lower, I just drew them out in the way that I want them to look, or as much as it will look. The other side obviously has it being very thin and just really high up there. So I'm going to show you how to simply correct that. And I don't know, maybe you guys can relate with that high arch and you want it a little bit softer. Maybe you have the other eyebrow, but it's a little too full in the front and not anywhere else. Maybe you can relate with that side. Okay, so like I said, with her eyebrows, because she's got that salt hair with that light skin, I've chosen the ash brown powder with the angle brush. I'm going to use ebony with myself. I could also use the ash brown as well. And look at that little area I'm showing you. Now, because now it's been waxed, can you see how much more even it does look, even just simply getting it shaped properly? So that also helps. That little area in that pocket, the high peak, I left that string of hair. So it's so easy for her to fill them in, right? Because that guide is there and all she has to do is fill it inside that little string of hair I left. Inside that area is probably not going to be filled in with more hair. She would have seen it by now. And as we age, we lose hair, unfortunately. So I'm using the brow primer. This really helps with the powders, especially when you have a lot less hair in those areas you're going to fill the color in. So it has no color. It really helps the powder to go on not only deeper, but it helps to stay on longer. And once you put it on in these little areas that you want the color to go on, make sure you go over it with the spoolie brush. So that way you spread the primer throughout the eyebrow and on the skin. Okay, so like I said, I'm using I think that's the ash brown powder. I'm using the ebony. You can also use taupe. If you have this color and salt hair, you want to go really light, you can get away with a color called taupe. It's a little bit more ashier. You want to stay in the ashy tone because of that salt hair. Now see the angle of that brush? Now I'm doing that lower side of the eyebrow first. The angle of the brush is going this way, right? I'm barely touching her skin, you guys. Like I'm barely touching her skin to draw them in because of that primer underneath. It's like picking up the color very easy. The other side, I'm doing the same thing, going underneath that little area right here, creating that line with that string of hair I left behind. So again, it's going to make it so much easier for her to fill that area in. You notice I went a little high up in the front there, because if you just leave that dip that goes like kind of like a hook, it's not going to complete the fullness, and it's not going to give her like a brow lift. She wants a brow lift. By adding some color or height up here, it raises the eyebrows up. So it's real important to just apply some color right there. So I'm going to apply a little bit of color for myself right here underneath, and then right here. Now, you don't need that much tail or the ends to be too long, otherwise you're going to drag the eyebrow down. And that's the other thing, right in that temple area right here. As we age, ladies, you know that this area kind of recedes in, so that if you drag the ends down, it's going to just really curve your eyebrows. It's just going to drag everything down. So you want to just go against that. Okay, and I'm going to do the other side as well. And while I'm doing her eyebrows, you notice that up in the front, I'm just going very lightly. And you notice I'm going these little circles. When I do these little circles, it just kind of cuts that harsh edge. You don't want to go too square up in the front. Okay, so I'm doing this underneath right here. And so you can use a pencil as well to do these little circles, but you know, while we're using the brush muzzle, do those little circles with the longer tip of the brush. You know, they got that longer side and the shorter side. You always want to move the hair around to make sure you get inside. My eyebrows, of course, don't have as much hair as she does in those areas, so I don't have to move anything around, but you want to make sure you move the hair around to get in the color in those areas that have more skin than there is hair. Very important to do that, right? And you're also seeing that the end of the eyebrow, the middle to the end, is getting a little darker. I like that look, but you don't have to do that. It's kind of like a mild ombre look where the ends end up being a little darker than up in the front. And so here I'm going right underneath, filling it in. Again, make sure the front here goes up higher, just like you see on this model. And making those adjustments just makes it leveled out a tiny bit more. And I'm just being very light-handed because keep in mind, I use the brow primer underneath first. So that's why I'm able to just be light-handed and get the color on there without putting much effort, without struggling, and without pushing the brush too hard. You're just barely tapping in around your eyebrows. And if you have her type of brows or skin, you're really just putting it on the skin. There's fuzz around there, so it'll grab the color. So make sure that again, you're going back and forth, and I'm going to go back and forth, right? Go here, and then you go here, and then you go here. That way you're seeing how you're doing. Because if you're just doing the whole eyebrow, and then you're like, okay, now I have to do the other side, it's going to be harder to even that out. Okay, so look at that. It looks so good already. I'm raising up the eyebrow here, and I'm filling in here. And, you know, don't think that you can't go back and fill in any of the areas that you might have missed. So again, I'm just going over here, and see that highlighter I'm using? It's always important to do that because it cleans up any type of mess that you might have done, and it just kind of pops the eyebrow out, really, especially when you have fair skin. It just, the contrast, here's the contrast. I mean, you do something like this, you really get that contrast. I'm not going to blend it in too much because I want you to see the contrast, but of course you always want to blend it in a little bit so that way you don't, you know, everything's about blending too. Don't forget that. Okay, so yeah, and I'm going to go back and finish the eyebrows while her eyebrows are being cleaned up. And the brow gel is very important, right? Because she's got hair. Remember, she actually has some hair in and around. And look at that before and after. And I want you to see all the 3 stages where she has that before, right? With nothing, haven't started anything. That's the outline, right? And then, of course, the after, where it's all done. Now, here's just the before and after. Big difference, right? Big difference. You don't have to get all technical about how to make it so even like this, but just as long as you fill in that bottom curved area and raise up the front, you're really going to make a big difference. As you can see by just my eyebrows, it's already a big difference, right? I filled it in here. I raised up a little bit here. I just filled in that little pocket here. I raised up the front here, and I didn't have to go. I went a little bit higher on this side because remember, this side was just a little lower. but the adjustment wasn't that much on this side. It was just in that little middle pocket, right? So I'm a little bit more even, right? And I left the highlighter here and not here just so that you can see that there is such a nice difference with that. Now this highlighter has the dual side. It has the shiny side and the matte side. If you put the matte side in, it's just too bright, you turn it over and you apply the shiny side over it, it actually tones it down. You would think it's the opposite, but it actually isn't. And it just gives that kind of nice dewy type of look. So it's not so drying, or it doesn't look so dry. Okay, so I hope this tip helped. Please let me know if it did, and let me know if you are learning on these types of models that I'm showing you guys. So, and thank you for the comments. That also helps me in knowing if I'm doing the right thing. Please subscribe if you haven't already. And yeah, thank you for your time. Thank you for sticking with me on this video. That also helps. And I will see you guys right back here. Thank you.